we'll turn over to your team, to East Lansing. Michigan State with the win tonight. I can't remember the final score. I think it was by 23 points.
74-51.
74-51. Cart, I know you and Greg talked about that yesterday. That was a big forecasting to see how would Izzo respond, how would the veterans respond, what tweaks would he make. What did you think of what you saw tonight?
Okay, I wanna make this and this is an honor to Greg by using this word. I want to make this unequivocally clear that Southern Indiana is one of the worst teams to grace a Division I basketball court. They just transitioned into D1 a couple years ago. I believe 2 years ago it was.
Last year was their first year in D1.
Last year was their first year in D1. Okay. So eventually Southern Indiana down the line, they might have something. This year, this is a team we should have ran by 40 if we are who we think we are. Now let's take a step back because we are not who we think we are. There's a couple things I want to address about this game. Shooting, for one. Through 2 games, I believe the stats are we are 3 for 33, 3 for 34, maybe.
I think it's
Something
two.
around that.
I think it's 2 for
Is it
33.
2?
Yeah,
Oh, it is
2
2.
for 31. 2 for 31.
It is 2 for 31. I believe Trey Holloman hit one, and then Tyson Walker hit one tonight. And Nick Sanders, the walk-on, actually had one rim out tonight. He was one of those 3-point snipers. That's where we're at in our Michigan State fandom right now. They're a concern for me. Like, the shooting is a concern. Don't get me wrong. But at the same time, I would bet every dollar that I have that Jay Nakins is going to make some of the shots that he had. He had some really good looks. We know who Jay Nakins is. We saw him be a knockdown shooter. Those are going to fall, okay? Tyson Walker is going to be able to shoot and get it. Like, we can count on Tyson Walker to do it too. Now it's just like, where do we get some other shooting from? Is it maybe Xavier Booker? Is it guys like AJ Hoggard who are able to knock down a couple shots? I think and then, on paper it would be Malik Hall, but to be honest, something's wrong with Malik Hall's jumper right now. I mean, the hitch just gets worse and worse every single game. Not really sure what it is. I think it might be in his head at this point, but like the jumper just doesn't. It just looks off. It looks very slow. Robbie Hummel actually pointed it out on the broadcast tonight. But in any regards, I'm confident the shooting will be okay. Now, the long-term concerns for me, defensive rebounding. This team is going to be one of the worst defensive rebounding teams in Power 5 conferences. And I think that we're going to have to adjust to that. Like, I don't have a fix for that. I don't think there's a player on this roster that'll necessarily fix that. I mean, Jay Nakins was one of our better rebounders tonight, even though Mady Sissoko led the team in rebounding with 10. A lot of those were him getting his own misses. So I don't think we can count on Mady to be the main rebounder of this team. We have to rebound by committee, and that's going to lead to some bad defensive rebounding numbers. And I'm not sure how you exactly fight through that. Obviously you could say teams got to box out and teams got to rally to the ball, but at the same time, some guys just aren't good defensive rebounders. So that's definitely going to be a concern moving forward. And then lastly, before I turn it over to you after my long monologue here, the young bulls got to rock, man. The young bulls got to rock. And, I don't know how long they necessarily got to rock for, but I know for a fact that the vets on this team got to be like, damn, we started off slow in Tennessee. Young guys come in and provide a spark. We started slow against James Madison. Once again, young guys come in. We start slow the second half of Southern Indiana and let them go on a 12-0 run after they couldn't hit the broadside of a barn or dribble, for that matter. Young guys come in again and provide a spark. So I think they need to realize that, and this is the thing, I don't want it to become a vets versus young guys thing. That's not the case. Like, I don't want them to be looking over their shoulder and be like, oh, here come the young guys, or the young guys being like, oh man, we could do better than the vets. It's just like they got to help each other out. Like, they got to realize that they can play to their level and the young guys can help them out, and the young guys can play to their level and the vets can help them out. And like, when you think about really good teams, Riley, it's teams that have vets and young guys that are cohesive. And you got a good mix of those. And then you throw in a little good coach on top of that, a little spice, and then you got a great team. So are we going to find that perfect match, that perfect kind of cohesion? I don't know. But I think that's part of the reason why we look like we do now.
Yeah, like you said, the template is there for this team to be really good. There's a reason why they're preseason top 5, and it's not just because they made the second weekend last year. I picked them to win the national title. I know it's not the most talented roster in the world, but there's national title level talent nonetheless. And I love the combination of vets. I thought that you'd get enough shooting between Tyson Walker and Jaden Akins that other shooting concerns wouldn't matter as much. And even if it's not the best group of freshmen, like they're not on Duke's freshman level, I thought Izzo had got his swagger back. I thought he was like, I've done things my way and it's working out for me. And I'm like, that all of that, that's the makings of a title team. And like you said, with those young dudes, that was exactly the main point I wanted to hit on was that 12-0 run. Xavier Booker enters the game, immediately gets a dunk. And then on the very next play, they ran a little offense through him. I think he kicked it out to Trey Holloman, who made the extra pass. I can't remember who scored off it. It might have been Carr, might have been someone else, but it was like, dang, if Michigan State is able to like put Xavier Booker in the middle of the floor and let him make some decisions and let him pass a little bit. Again, I know it's against Southern Indiana, but I didn't even know that was in his bag. Like his talent is so apparent. I love that he had a block tonight too, just to show that he could do something on defense. Cause I know that's been his knock as well. Like it just seems like as soon as he gets in, it's just, he's so much more instinctive than Sissoko. And just has a knack to make plays. And I know Sissoko had a double-double. Like, I don't know if that, I haven't watched him enough to have the same feelings that you do, Cart.
Hey, hold on. Let me
But I know it was the double.
no. Let me Let me put my hater chain on right now. That was the most fluky double-double in the history of double-doubles. That's the reason why Southern Indiana should low-key be a little bit ashamed of themselves. Because that was a fluky double-double.
All right, good. I didn't think that would have changed your opinion, especially because it's an OVC team that's, was playing D2 teams 2 years ago. But yeah, the other takeaway that deals with the young guys, I love that Tom Izzo has already thrown his arm around Jeremy Fears. I actually had the game on mute at that point, so I don't know what Hummel and Kevin Kugler was saying about it. But I always love that dynamic between Izzo and his players. Like whenever you see like Draymond would do it, Cash would do it, where they would throw their arm around Izzo, and I like to see Izzo do it too. It was very wholesome, and it made me think like, okay, Izzo already trusts this guy, and maybe we see Fears enter the starting lineup.
I mean, one of the first things that popped into my mind is last year Big Ten tournament. When AJ Hoggard and Tom Izzo had their little moment on the bench, and it was Hoggard basically, honestly disrespecting Coach Izzo and shaking him off like, all right, bro, like, all right, like I ain't listening to that, I ain't trying to hear that. And then you see that thing with Fears, and it's just refreshing, like as a freshman to take that coaching, and he was doing so many things, like making the right passes, he was getting down transition, and honestly, he got shorted of some assists because Booker wasn't able to finish some dunks in this game, and it's. I find myself in a push and pull situation a little bit with Booker because, like you said, you pointed the dunk and the other things that he can do offensively. You see it. It's a threat. The other team notices that too. Like just having him on the floor, people are going to close out to him. Like people are not closing out to Malik Hall right now. And it just condenses the floor right now when he's out there, when Hall's out there. So it opens up when Booker's out there. But also at the same time, there was like a 5 or 7 minute stretch in the second half where Booker just looked like he was completely lost defensively. Like, I mean, real bad. Not just like freshman lost, but just like, we can't have you on the floor if you're going to be doing this. So, it's a push-pull. It's a push-pull thing. There needs to be some type of there is a lineup that I think brings out the best in Michigan State, and maybe Coach Izzo's tinkering with that right now. If you're going to do it, now's the time to do it. And he masters the art of tinkering with lineups and rotations. He loves to do it. It brings him joy. So maybe he'll find it. But I just want to see the young Bulls rock a little bit. That's all.
I mean, we touched on this, I think 2 years ago in the program formerly known as Unscripted. Great podcast name, by the way. Rest in peace, Unscripted. Or that iteration of it, at least. But when Roy Williams showed up to that Michigan State game, his first year of retirement, I feel like he and Izzo are very much of the same ilk because Roy would do the same stuff in the non-conference against these. It wouldn't even necessarily be like teams as bad as Southern Indiana, where he would just throw like if he was pissed at the starters, he would put walk-ons in there just to like troll the fan base, and then he'd throw in Andrew Platek and get him like his 10 minutes in the first half. Like he would do that with Luke May as a freshman and sophomore. We were all like, Roy, what are you thinking? This guy is buns. And then he hits one of the biggest shots in Carolina history. I had to delete some tweets after that, but Last thing I'll say about this Michigan State game, and this would even tie into fears and getting Izzo to throw the arm around him. I don't think anybody at Michigan State should wear number 5 and a headband. Like the 5 headband combo, I think should be retired. Like I think Trey Holloman, like maybe throw on like a. Do they still have like? I don't think the ninja headbands are allowed in games anymore.
No, they're
But
not.
you got to spice it up a little bit because that just every time I see it, I'm like, oh, Cassius Winston, and it's Trey Holloman.
Yeah,
But if anybody was going to do it, at least give it to like Fears because he's sort of in that same mold as like the next up as far as Michigan State point guards. But
yeah, part of the reason Holloman is not going to flourish is because he's not honoring legacy right now. Cohen, you see, Cohen Carr's got 55. You know, he's got a 5 in there. Carson Cooper's got a 5 in his number, but they respect the singular 5. Holloman's not respecting the singular 5 right now.